Hello everyone, welcome to session 4, Industrialization in Vertical Farming. New technologies and innovation make a significant differences in vertical farms. With this, we welcome the first speaker lined up for today, Italo M.R. Geets. He is the research agronomist, plant and mineral nutrition and soilless horticulture in Brazilian Agricultural Resource Corporation, Imbrapa. Uh, he'll be speaking on international investment in vertical farms and CEA research, role of Brazil. The stage is yours now.
Thank you very much. I'm going to share my presentation here. Just a minute because I closed it accidentally. I'm really sorry. Okay. Can you see me? All right.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Italo Guedes. I am a research agronomist, a crop scientist, and a soil scientist at Embrapa, which is the Brazilian Research Corporation. For the last 3 years, I have become also a vertical farm specialist. And I'm going to talk about the experience of Brazil in vertical farms and CA research. It might be a surprise to some people that Brazil is working with CEA research and vertical farms, but I believe that that is already consolidated area of research in Brazil, and we already have some vertical farms operating, as we're going to see soon. And I'd like to begin my presentation by introducing the company to which I work, Embrapa. Embrapa is the Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation. It is a government funded corporation, and it was founded in 1973 and is under the responsibility of the Brazilian Ministry of Agriculture. Embrapa was probably the main responsible for transforming Brazil from a net importer of food in the 1970s into a net exporter in one of the main producing countries in the world today. And the focus of our research is on innovation towards the agricultural sector. And we work with an extensive agenda of strategic issues such as vertical farm and CEA, anticipating scenarios and solutions for agriculture, mainly Brazilian agriculture, but in the last decade, we are working very closely to some countries abroad too. Embrapa, as you could see here, there are 45 research centers of Embrapa, widespread throughout the whole of Brazilian territory in several states. And I myself work with one of those units, Embrapa Vegetables, which is located in Brasilia, which is Brazil's capital, and whose work is, as the name implies, 100% dedicated to the research on vegetable crops from seed science up to marketing. And I'd like to begin by stating that it really is a challenge to grow vegetable crops in the tropics. Most of the vegetables grown in Brazil originate from or have been improved in temperate climates. Even the ones which originated in South America, like tomato and potato, they were originated in the Andes, which present a much colder and temperature climate than tropical Brazil. So, despite the efforts to adapt these crops to the tropics, there is clearly a limit to what can be done using traditional breeding techniques, conventional breeding techniques. And tropical regions present considerable challenges for the production of quality vegetables, as physical productivity is not the main determinant. There are demands also on quality, on visual quality, and that is not easy to achieve sustainably under tropical climate conditions. And to make things a little bit more complicated, climate change is making it increasingly difficult to grow vegetables in the tropics. In fact, I think that those who doubt climate change should spend some time trying to grow vegetables in Brazil. The increase in the frequency of extreme weather events due to global climate change has negatively impacted agricultural production in Brazil, particularly the production of vegetables and fruits. The occurrence of pest and disease attacks has also become more common and more severe in certain regions. And we believe that that is also probably one of the results of climate change. Brazil, as most of you must know, is a very big country. It's a huge area, it's a continental country. And some people might think, why is Brazil investing in CEA research and vertical farms when there's so much land in the country? And I can tell you that despite the abundance of land with agricultural potential in the country, the production of vegetables depends less on territorial extension than on adequate climatic conditions for production. In addition to that, the trend today, which is very clear, is that there is a societal incentive to reduce agricultural areas and increase productivity. Expanding areas under agriculture is not a real option right now, as you must all know, for those concerned about the sustainability of agriculture and food production. And it is not also good public relations for sectors interested in the sale and the production and sale of fresh food in urban areas to say that we are going to expand the area of um, vegetable production. So the quantity of land, the abundance of land, is not really that important to vegetable production. Besides that, there is a great competition between the production of grains and the production of fresh food. Um, Brazil, as I said, is a continental country, a continental sized country. And the fact that vegetables are fragile and easily perishable products is one of the main reasons why vegetable farms are generally located close to urban areas. That is a reality in Brazil. Most of what we call the white belt, the greenhouses dedicated to vegetable production, are located within a distance of at most 200 kilometers from most big urban centers in Brazil. In spite of that proximity to cities and to the main consuming areas, estimates of post harvest losses for some vegetables approach 50%. We even have some numbers higher than 50%, but that is an average. In the hottest and wetter areas of the country, such as the northern Amazonian region or in the hottest and driest area of the country, which is the northeast region, it is even more difficult to grow vegetables. So these regions import fresh food from producing regions further south, from southern Midwest and southeast Brazil. And the distances are enormous. Going these produce are transported by trucks in roads which are not always good quality. So you can imagine that this is really a problem. Brazilian agriculture is highly dependent on the import of inputs, mainly fertilizers, and that is a major concern for the country. This is a matter not only of economic importance, but also of national food security. Um, and this is very clear today with the very high prices that fertilizers have reached. So, input saving production systems such as soilless farming, like hydroponics, are in high demand in the country and are expected to gain more space as they already have. Um, a major concern in the world and in Brazil today regarding the quality of vegetables and fruits and all fresh food is the presence of pesticide residues. Anyone who has grown vegetables in the field under a tropical climate knows the challenge, the enormous challenge of growing this group of species without using pesticides in the absence of a winter season to interrupt the life cycle of pests and pathogens. And that is the reality of most of Brazil, at least most of the farming areas. And at the same time, the demand for fresh and healthy food is high throughout the year, independent of the season, which is a challenge really for traditional field production systems. Um, um, Although the consumption of fresh food by the Brazilian population is still relatively low, a survey carried out by our team, our research group, showed that a large part of the Brazilian urban population is willing to pay more for vegetable fruits perceived as safer and healthier. Some groups, some sections of the Brazilian society are even willing to pay 50% more for safer foods, for what they perceive as safer food. So these data suggest that the purchase of sustainably produced vegetables and fruits has great growth potential in the country. There is some overconfidence with the promises. And before I go on, this is one of the lab structures in which we study controlled environment agriculture. It's in the campus of Imbrapa Vegetables here at Brasilia. It's really a container. Now, this was the first one. Now we have some other structures as well. So, Embrapa's main role is research in applied crop science. As I was saying, there seems to be what I call an overconfidence with the promises and perspectives of actual indoor agriculture. Some enthusiasts believe that the technology alone will solve every problem. Every problem should be solved by using the right LEDs, the right HVAC, and things like that. But using an analogy with computers, the technology in vertical farms corresponds only to the hardware. Few people are talking about the software, still using this analogy, about the information that will make vertical farms run. That software, we believe, is the production systems, the agronomic knowledge. So, a large part of Imbrapa's research results are production systems per se. Production systems are the sets of instructions on how a crop should be conducted, and that's mainly what we are doing. That's, of course, we test equipment. Of course, we test different variables which are important to crop growth within vertical farms. But our main role is really on research in applied crop science, and it's been like that since the inception of Imbrapa. So, a research partnership between Embrapa and the company, which is called in Portuguese 100% livre, which means 100% free. It implies that it is, and it really is 100% free from pesticides or any other kind of contaminant. Developed production systems for different species of vegetables grown under controlled environment conditions. The research results allowed for the creation of a vertical farm in the center of Sao Paulo, which is probably the largest city in South America and one of the largest in the world. And this vertical farm has been operating since January of 2021. Although even our research team was initially skeptical about the feasibility of a vertical farm in a country like Brazil, the company 100% livre, 100% free, is not only operating well but expanding rapidly, and with plans for further expansion. As you can see here, this tower is one of their production towers in São Paulo, in downtown São Paulo, so to say, and it's really producing very well using the information generated by our research team at Embrapa. And
Um,
my time
Sorry.
is, yeah.
Yes, yes. Sorry to interrupt in between, but I request you to wind up the presentation as it is
Yes, yes.
exceeding the limit time. Yeah.
Okay. I'm doing that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. So, and only to say that 100% Livre is not the only vertical farm operating in Brazil. In São Paulo alone, there are at least two other vertical farms, Pink Farms, which calls itself the largest vertical farm in Latin America. Fazenda Cubo, Cube Farm, is also a vertical farm in São Paulo City, and there are other cities that, with operating vertical farms in Brazil, at least five more cities. And this is the next step of our research, breeding fruit crops with higher harvest index and lower light needs for vertical farms. Thanks for listening. I'm sorry for taking a little bit more longer than what was
No
necessary.
problem. Thank you so much, Mr. Tallo, for such an insightful presentation. I'm sure you were able to highlight the contribution of Embrapa in the field of vertical farming. Now, if the audience have any questions for Italo, they can type in the question and answer tab in the right side of the screen. Now, let's welcome the next speaker of the session, Bhaskar Rao. He is the independent consultant in vertical farming. He will speak on the opportunities in controlled environmental agriculture, special emphasis on GCC. Mr. Bhaskar, the stage is yours now.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Good evening from Dubai. I would like to thank GBF for inviting me to make my presentation. So let's straight away get into the presentation. Hope my screen is visible.
Yes.
Yeah. The topic which I would like to talk today is about opportunities in CEA, which is Controlled Environment Agriculture, with special emphasis on GCC. As you can see in the map, we're talking of Gulf Cooperation Council. The few countries there here are 6, which is Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, and the UAE. I'm talking to you from the UAE. So basically what happens is the Middle East, is currently, which it imports around $35 billion of food, which is a very staggering figure when you talk about food imports. It's nearly around 95% of the food. And this is set to raise to around $70 billion in the next 2 decades. The major factors which drives this import into the GCC is the growing domestic and expat population. There is a huge expat population, the rising health consciousness among the populations, so changing tastes and also preferences, and the growing disposable income leading to higher consumption of nutritional foods. So in fact, these are a few factors which I could say is driving this the industry. Now let's get back to the global market. The global market size for CEA is around 100 billions. It will reach $100 billion by 2030. But I would be focusing more on the 5 to 6 factors that are leading to this huge market opportunity here in the Middle East, which is automation, management and analytics, lighting, the growing media, the crop inputs, and the seeds. And the biggest and the major is, which is not here in the slide, is the skill development. So I would like to stress today more on the skill development and, of course, the other aspects. That was the global. Now the MENA, the Middle East and North Africa market. The MENA region is projected to grow at a CAGR of 7.7% during the forecast period of 2020 to 2025, which is very big, which is very huge. In most of the countries in the MENA region, the contribution of the agriculture sector to the overall economy varies significantly among countries in this region. It ranges from 2.6% in Saudi Arabia to 11% in Egypt. So that's just to give you an understanding of the various types of levels of economies. The MENA hydroponic market, which is our main concern now, is 85.3 million by 2030. It will be reaching that figure, which is growing at a rate of 15.5%. So this is where the opportunities and, of course, the challenges that lie ahead of us. Challenges I would like to say is, the many Arab countries, they rely heavily on groundwater to meet their water requirements for, of course, economic and, of course, social development. And groundwater is facing depletion in the GCC countries, which threatens its sustainability. The challenges that are faced basically in the Middle East and in the UAE and the GCC is like the climate. It's arid, it's hot and humid. Water, depleting water tables, and which is very brackish because of that. The soil is a saline, sandy soil. So what I would like to stress here is, we have solutions for all the above 3. So to fight climate, we do have indoor vertical farms, or we'll set up greenhouses. Climate-controlled environment can be done. And depending on the season, we can either do it in shade houses or net houses. Water is a very big issue because of using water, abundantly or excessively for the field crops. That is reducing the water table. Water table, when I was here in the Middle East, it was at around 150 to 200 feet maximum in areas of where the farming is usually done. But now, just last month, we have done a survey, and the borewell goes to around 800 feet. So we get water at 800 feet now in some areas, of course, and which is very, very brackish. Soil is very saline, of course, and these three could be handled by, you do a crop cultivation in any sort of growing media. Any grow media we do for that. It could be cocoa peat, perlite, any sort of grow medias. It could be NFTs, it could be indoor-vertical farms. Yeah, so these technologies we can employ to fight these challenges. Water, of course, hydroponics, closed circuit, closed loop, so no much usage of water will be there. Fertilizer also will be less. The basic is the skills. Let me tell you very frankly, I'm here from the last 22, 23 years now. We always find a big issue in getting the actual skills to do these jobs. We do have the technologies, we do have the investment, we do have the enthusiasts who are really interested, but to get the perfect skill to grow such crops in such situations, in such climatic conditions, especially in the CEA or even in indoor-vertical farms, it gets very tough. So we need to have more stress on skill development, plant physiology, crop management, and structuring, efficient use of the limited resources to maximize yields. Because anyone could grow anything if you're giving them the best of the best water and fertilizers and everything, but you should be able to understand how to use these rare and limited resources to get maximum yields. Skilled manpower, which is basically agronomists. I'm talking about the agronomists, the skilled trained. The workforce or the laborers who work on these farms could be trained. Of course, they could be trained, but there should be someone who should train the trainer. So, in skilled manpower in the CEA sector is lacking in most of these Middle East countries. I have been getting lots of inquiries from people all over the Middle East who would like to, get a few skilled workers in their fields, in their farms, but it's getting very tough, especially with those farms which are using, ag-tech and controlled environment agriculture or in the top of greenhouses. So there's a huge scope in agricultural technology training facility to teach the basics of crop farming here. Innovative farming technologies, farm operations basically, AI and all other things in farming operations apart from actual plant physiology, and of course the farm management. What usually happens here is the lack of skills that results in investors not very happy with the type of investment and the type of yields they are expecting. Technology is perfect, everything is perfect, but there should be someone to run the show. So the future of CEA and hydroponics, basically, the CEA in the Middle East has a few cut above the rest pointers to establish long-term investment benefits. It is a win-win situation for all the stakeholders for the CEA industry here in the Middle East. There's a huge potential in areas with poor arable lands, like the GCC. The lands are very poor. And the technology is already proven. So we did not, start the wheel again. The technology is proven. And it offers the chance to grow food 12 months of the year, even in warm climates. It could be in the indoor-vertical farms. So these help in increasing the yields. So more products are grown in the market and harvested per square meter per drop. So there is an increase in yield per square meter per drop of water. So that would give a huge benefits to the food industry here. Also, it opens up immediate employment opportunities. I was talking to you about skill development. Apart from agronomy and plant physiology, of course, all the other parameters that go into, setting up an indoor-vertical farm or a controlled environment agriculture greenhouses. There is huge opportunities in agronomy, in the retailing and distribution, and thus it stimulates, you could say, new markets locally and also internationally. So the local markets could be stimulated, thus the economy gets stronger, and the technology is always there available. And, when you satisfy the local demand, there is less imports. which gives greener solutions, thus a zero carbon footprint. When you talk of CEA, when you talk of indo-vertical farms, we also have better agronomics. So it promotes more favorable working conditions. Healthier crop, we use very few pesticides. It provides health benefits to the consumer, improved quality of yields, more nutritionally sound and therefore tastier and superior products. And finally, you have the closed recirculation irrigation system, which conserves water. So nutrients solution may be reused in other areas. So there is a near zero water footprint. The future here lies in the local will become more important than organic. Of course, I'm not against organic, but the post-COVID era is aiming at self-sufficiency and food security throughout the entire globe. Growth and sustainable urban ag, awareness and health conscious. So there's a growth of the urban ag in all the areas in the locality, thus helping awareness and also health conscious. So people get more health conscious. So you have the opportunity for urban ag. Small farms and startups, they will regain a lot of traction, is what the future of CEA lies in the Middle East. So supplying to local areas or colonies. So when you have a area or a colony or a downtown where there is a lot of buzz going around, you could do indo-vertical farms supplying fresh greens, and whatever you could do it on the rooftops, which could be supplied to the local areas. So there is a market, a scope for each one of the stakeholder. There is more tech in ag and CA, like the IoT and the AI and the big data. It plays a huge role nowadays in increasing the market potential. The market potential thus increases with the introduction of CEA and indo-vertical farms. These are the few pointers which I could like to stress upon. So the basic thing which we could summarize for today's lecture is basically on skill development and on all other parameters of growth which are available. It could be waterways, it could be LEDs, it could be HVAC, it could be anything that is possible. So this could be effectively helping in raising the potential of agricultural growth in the region. So I think I have got a few minutes left for any Q&A, or this Q&A could be held at the end of the session. The stage is all yours. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Bhaskar, for such an insightful presentation. I'm sure the audience must have learned a lot from your presentation. If the audience have any question from Mr. Bhaskar, they can type in the Q&A session, which will be picked up after the session. Now we have the next speaker for the session, Gus van der Vels. He is the board member of FarmTech Society. He will be speaking on collaboration creates value in vertical farming. Let's see what Gus has to say. Gus, the stage is yours now.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Gus van der Vels. So let me share my screen with you. Here we go. And I think you can see it. Yes. So welcome, everyone. My name is Gus van der Vels. I'm a co-founder and board member for the FarmTech Society, which is an international industry association. And actually, I'm also wearing two other hats that have something to do with collaboration. I'm also involved in indoor farming Netherlands and the field lab vertical farming also here in the Netherlands. So I'll share a little bit about that as well. If we look at the challenge that we're all up against, basically, we're trying to help the world make a little bit food in a little bit better way, healthier food, making sure that people have access to fresh, high quality produce that also actually we need, if we look at the numbers, triple the amount of healthy produce that we have if we are to really improve the world's quality of food. Now, the controlled environment agriculture sector requires working together because we're doing something new. We're learning things. We are trying to put things together that weren't done before. And there it is quite essential. We don't believe that any particular company can do it all alone. And what we need is collaboration, standardization, market data, and of course also cross-sectoral innovation. So what we're trying to do, and this is also what FarmTech Society is about, is to make sure that we connect the people together, that we make sure that everybody can find their can find the information that they need and connect with the people that they want to connect to, and also that we make sure that we support the development of new people, train people, young people that are going to be working in this industry. Now, if you look at how this works, is that essentially you can look at a lot of different things, how you can collaborate or what you can collaborate on. And the most straightforward items, I think, are the objectives that everybody's after. How can we grow better crops? How can we make sure we make higher yields? And how can we make sure that we earn a little bit more money from this? In order to do this, make sure that we also have access to the right technology and better systems, and that we also develop the market in a way that people know what we have for sale and what we can offer them. Now, in order to do this, we need to go back another step, and for better systems and better crops, we need to understand how it's done in the best way possible. So we need to understand best practices, we'll learn from each other. If we are going to develop a market, we need to also make sure that people know what the market is about, what we can do, how it's different, and why it's better. And you can go on and on. So also then you need to develop standards. We need to understand how do we actually set a benchmark, how do we understand what growing is about, and how do we do it in the best possible way. And in order to set those standards, we need to also find ways that we can measure how we're working together. So we need to find ways that which sensors are we going to use, how are we going to compare each other, and how are we going to make sure that we can say something sensible about the product and the service that we're delivering. Now, I already mentioned earlier that education is quite important, that the people that are going to do all of these things know what they're supposed to be doing. And also quite important, and this is something that's often overlooked, I find in people that have a lot of good initiative and good ambition that to create a differentiating proposition in a vertical farm. You also need to work with the lawmakers so that the policies are there, that the politicians know what new forms of farming is about, what the impact be for society, but also that there's a level playing field in the sense that the rules for indoor farming and vertical farming are comparable or provide a level playing field compared to other forms of farming, which is not straightforward because indoor farming is often done in an urban environment, whereas traditional farming is more in the countryside, and typically the rules are different if you want to do things there. If you look at all these collaboration areas, actually there are some differences. Some of these things are pre-competitive and provide enablers for the market. And these are basically what I also in the past referred to as the public goods for the sector. Those things that nobody by themselves can or want to arrange, but they're good for everyone and we need to have them. So to compare this to having highways in the city or a good internet connection, it is quite important, but it's something that you share together. On the other side, there are differentiators which make one company better than the other. So that is a highly competitive environment to work in together, and that yields to the better crops and the higher yields, etc. And what we're finding is that if we're going to set up collaboration efforts, you actually need to differentiate these things. These are different types of things to work together on that require different modes of collaboration. On the one hand, we have the open collaboration, which is basically has a very low threshold and where we want actually competitors to work together and get together in one group. And that's where FarmTech Society is, and that's also where Indoor Farming Nederland is. Indoor Farming Netherlands is basically a local effort aimed at the Netherlands, where FarmTech Society has a broad international outlook, but with very much similar objectives, making sure that we are working on better education, developing the right kinds of policies and laws, looking at how we can standardize, how we can communicate best practices, and also how we can do benchmarking, quite important, so that we know that how farms compare to each other, and then we can also potentially predict a little bit about the success if you're doing something new. And on the other hand, there's another initiative, which is the field lab vertical farming, in the Netherlands, which is very much more of a closed collaboration, where we have a limited number of companies and institutes working together, who are looking at fairly specific research at how we make better systems, how do we make better crops. This also leads to proprietary knowledge, and obviously that's not something you can share in the open, so that is much more guarded by solid agreements on how you work together, how you share the knowledge, and how you protect that benefit if you develop it. And both forms of collaboration basically weave into each other, or they're connected, so it's a bit of a continuum, and they're all quite important for the further development of the sector. Now, would like to tell you a little bit more about FarmTech Society, which is an international non-profit association uniting the sector. 3 pillars, essentially: standards, education, and policy development. And if you look at the standard side, and actually I'll show you how it also links into the types of collaboration that I just discussed. If you look at the standard side, what is happening is a major program there where I would like to invite as many of you to participate if you can, if you're willing. We're setting up a global data benchmarking database, also supported by the financial community, where we're looking to collect data from participating companies. Of course, only the data that they're willing and comfortable sharing. But the data this data we can then put into a solid database, which allows us to extract benchmarking numbers and compare numbers, and therefore also learn from what works, what doesn't work, and therefore also, and actually we're working with a scientist at Liverpool University on this, to also extract from that some predictive measures, which again help us all to learn. So this is clearly an example of crowd wisdom, if you will. We all put in a little bit and we get a little bit more back. So this, we're more than happy to tell you more about this, but this is done through the efforts of FarmTech Society. Also, education. We're based in Brussels, working closely with the EU, and also involved in a number of Erasmus Plus programs, which are designed to support the education of our young professionals. Of course, also very much in a indoor growing environment. And this is not just the growers, but it's also the people that have to run the business, that do the marketing, and be the operations managers. Finally, we are also a registered representative at the EU in Brussels. We're also developing a similar position in North America and the United States, where we are regularly consulted on matters of policies, new efforts, new laws that are relevant to indoor farming, not just farming itself, but also having to do with sustainability, having to do with food quality, etc., where we are being asked for our inputs, and we're also working together with our members to also make sure that the voice of our sector is heard there. So in short, a non-profit organization, international, by and for their members, to make sure that we all stand a little bit stronger. Now, on top of that, next to that, we have Indoor Farming Netherlands, which is a group based in the Netherlands connecting the sector here in Holland, where I'm based. It's a means, the community is a means to connect people, knowledge, projects around indoor farming in the Netherlands, which means that if you are active in the sector, you're welcome to join. And what we're really looking for is to support the needs of entrepreneurs that they cannot address alone. Of course, if you have a problem as a company that you think and you want to address alone, be our guest, please go and do it. But I think in many cases it does help to collaborate, especially because we have a high-tech problem in a sector that is traditionally not as high-tech yet. So there is actually a lot of crossovers that can be done, and you can learn a lot from companies that have been doing something else in the past and that are now also starting to farming. So this is a great way to get to know each other. And in the end, of course, also the objective from the Dutch perspective is that we believe that the Dutch sector has a lot to offer internationally. So we're also trying to find ways that the sector can combine their forces for a strong international position, also helping farmers in other countries that can benefit from the help from the expertise that's available here. Objectives in 2022 is to support knowledge development by bringing people together, to provide a platform for the thought leaders who are amongst the members that they share and that others can learn from it, create exposure for the sector in events and in media, and also support the development of a indoor farming related category in retail. So like some other people also have been discussing, there are significant benefits on indoor farming compared to other forms of farming, also on the product quality and the proposition in retail, that make sure that the retail also knows and understands this. Also, this links into the types of collaboration that I mentioned before. Now, thirdly, there is also the field lab vertical farming, which is a closed community with 10 committed partners from industry, knowledge centers, and also from some semi-government, which is basically a group of companies, and I'll show the logos on the right side here. A group of companies that have committed to work together on 4 working packages that are specifically aimed at developing proprietary knowledge. And those areas are market understanding and market development, which basically is working under the leadership of Wageningen University to understand consumer behavior first. So understanding how people look at indoor farming, what they believe indoor farming for them, also what they believe indoor farming will not do for them, or where they distrust indoor farming, and you understanding those consumer behaviors and consumer concerns, and build a market approach around that. The second working package we have is for innovation and demonstration, and actually we've been doing a lot of work here into understanding and explaining the differences between farm designs in their performance. So the example or the experiment that has been done a number of times is you take the exact same seeds, the exact same growth recipe on a high level. You grow them all in the same way at the same time in various vertical farms. So basically, amongst the members, we have about 5 or 6 different farms that are participating, and we measure the performance, and we look at understanding the calibration. So we make sure that we have sensors in place that basically measure things like temperature, wind speed, humidity, light levels, etc. And then of course we record the growth performance, and we're finding extremely significant differences between farms, which have to do with microclimate, with the way the farms have been calibrated, set up, and operated. And therefore, the conclusion is that actually quite a lot of difference between different types of farms, which in the end affect the performance of your installation, and therefore also your economic performance. And of course, the objective is that we understand this better, and also this can help us design better farms in the future. We're also working on education and training, developing curricula for the farmers of the future, working together with a couple of schools. This one is led also by In Holland School University here in The Hague. Essentially, here is looking to put up a number of training courses and programs for medium to higher level students that in the end are the people that are going to be working in and need to also bring the industry to the next level. And finally, the fourth working package is to create a business accelerator, offering enduring support for entrepreneurs in vertical farming, basically taking the outcomes of the 3 working packages above, put them into a consistent platform, and allowing this to also continue forward until after this program has terminated initially. Initially, this program is also funded by the European Union and the local government. And of course, the idea is that this turns into a strong base to go for the future. Again, you can see that this work is much more aimed at competitive and differentiating knowledge, but still you see that the types of collaboration that I outlined, from going from market development to technology development, best practices, standards, and education, are all part of this effort. So, summarizing, together we can build a better industry. I think we need each other. We can benefit a lot from combining knowledge and basically using of course the idea that 1 and 1 is 3 in this case. And this can be done in a number of ways. First of all, you can join FarmTech Society, grow together with us, benefit from mutual interests, connect and help realize controlled environment agriculture solutions for global challenges. Our website is here on the page. Of course, also this presentation will in the end be distributed as a handout, so you can also find it from there. But do look us up, join us, and if you have any questions, feel free to approach me or any of my colleagues online. If you're based in the Netherlands, also an invitation to connect with Indoor. It's open to all entrepreneurs involved in indoor farming in the Netherlands. You can find us on the group LinkedIn here. Again, you can take a screenshot, or you can wait for the handout. But find us on that group, or just look for Indoor Farming Nederland on LinkedIn, and we're welcome to have you. And finally, the field of vertical farming is a closed community, but it is not the only thing we can do. So we have now a number of projects that are running amongst the 10 members that we have, but we can start new projects like it. This is also something that is very much of a possibility and being looked into right now. So if you're based in the Netherlands, and if you're willing to enter in that collaboration with like-minded partners, do feel free to join us, to look us up and to share your ideas, and we can see what we can do. With this, I'd like to conclude. Thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any questions, please, you know where to find me. And also you can find the booth for FarmTech Society here at the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gus, for such a wonderful presentation. And now we have the next speaker in line, Mr. Dharmendra Rai. He is the Country Director for Association of Vertical Farming India. He'll speak on building an international vertical farming network, role of India. Mr. Dharmendra, now the stage is yours.
Thank you for inviting us at the program. And today I would like to share with you the future of vertical farming in India. And
yes, we will click on the screen share button. Dr. Dharmendra, perfect. We are able to see it. You can launch your presentation.
yeah, you get
Yes,
my presentation?
Yes, we can. Yes, we
Yeah,
can.
okay.
I would request you to kindly, yeah, great. It's totally visible.
Okay. Yeah, basically the future of vertical farming in India is that it is a promising, sustainable solution to the growth of healthy and local food needed in the urban areas in India. And the government is now supporting and has started a national smart city mission, which is since 2019, where it has in the year 2020 invested about US 96 million towards urbanization and smart city program. And unfortunately, last 2 years we have been having a lot of climate change in India, and the farmers are having difficulty due to the cyclonic rainfall, and the conventional farmers have lost a great deal of crops and crops destruction. So we need to look at different ways to go into this in urbanization, and the farmers in the cities need the people in the cities need good hygienic food and all that. Under the urbanization, one of the most important problem we are facing is fresh fruits and vegetables. But as yet, the government has not started that program towards vertical farming. So at the moment, we have over 100 cities which are under under urbanization. So where we need to develop the vertical farming systems in India. Urbanization today, nearly 8 million people are under urban agriculture globally, and the potential is high in the self-sustainable area. As on 2016 in Japan, we had almost over 170 plant factories which have been developed. In that same manner, we can do that in India. Over 95% of the buildings in India are having terraces, and where we can have vertical farming system, and where we can develop vertical farms in the urban cities, where we can have terrace gardening and all that, plus multi-layer cultivation, then the community gardens we can develop with vertical farming systems. So it will be much better for people to unite together and go into vertical farming system. In urban agriculture, we have a lot of other things which we need to look at, and that is solving the problem of ending poverty, ending hunger, bringing sustainable consumables and production patterns, protect and restore, promote sustainable, usable ecosystems, and these are basically which have been discussed with the other members on the panel, and we need to develop much more in India, as we have less know-how at the moment in vertical farming, where we need advanced technology to develop all these systems. In vertical farming, there are quite a number of products which can be developed in uh, this area where exotic vegetables can be utilized. Presently, in also our head office in Germany, we have started cultivating indoor saffron production, where saffron is one of the leading products in India, where it is not developed so much or is having a constraint because of the quality and the standards which cannot be managed. But in indoor farming, I am sure we can do this through proper collaboration with the required people in the field. As in vertical farming, we have quite a number of different systems which can be adopted. But I feel that today, whatever we are doing through polyhouse, that is totally going outdated. So we need to look at new ways to grow uh, our vegetables in the urban centers, where I would request the other companies to assist on this, and we can work jointly on this uh, program. Indoor farming requirements, as it requires controlled environment, improve as it is improving the yield in the growing areas, less manpower, fast growing of production. The key components are climate control. As I have mentioned that presently we are having a problem of uh, the climate control, where we are having cyclonic weather, and the farmers are having a lot of difficulties now to sustain the losses. So if we can look into vertical farming, it will be a most advantage to the Indian sector, and also globally we can support the exports of other vegetables and fruits. There are new job opportunities, and also the plus point in vertical farming is that the growth is hygienically done, and the production is quite good. Food safety is there, and we can go into many other requirements which are there in urbanization. So if we work as a group in this activity, and through the association we are there to support, where we can get the market requirement, and we are also working on medicinal plants, where the government through the national medicinal plant is supporting, giving and has promoted almost 240 different medicinal plant, and they are giving subsidies between 30 to 70% in cultivating of this medicinal plant. So through vertical farming we can do quite a lot, and if there is any requirement, or if people want to join up with our association in India, we are there to support all the people in this required business. And if there is anything else, please let me know. I have given my number on this uh, presentation, and we are ready to have a joint collaboration with the people. Thank you.
Uh, Thank you, Mr. Dharmendra, for such an enlightening presentation.
Thank you.
If the audience have any question from Mr. Dharmendra, they can write in the Q&A tab. Now we have the last speaker for this session, Annabelle Morelos-Dross. She is the President and Chief Science Officer of Fusion Farms. She will give her presentation on a strategic approach towards successful vertical farming. Please, Annabelle, the stage is yours now.
Thank you so very much. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak today. And I am going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. So just give me a second here. There we go. Okay, and can you please confirm that you are able to see my slides?
Yes, it's visible. It's perfect.
Thank you so very much for confirming. So I'm glad that you can see it. So this morning, I'm going to take the next few minutes to talk to you about Fusion Farms. We are a controlled environment aquaponics indoor vertical farm in Mayagüez, Puerto Rico. And I'd like to share with you our strategic approach towards successful vertical farming. There's so many different perspectives and so many different ways in which we could share with you what are some of the key factors and key things that we're doing to set this up successfully. And I'm going to start by looking at some of the specific important factors that are involved in industrialization. And these are big themes in terms of just any industry, but specifically today on vertical farming. So looking at what natural resources are available, and briefly, I'm going to present to you some of the ways in which we use some of the natural resources that we have on our island, one of them being rainwater and how we go about collecting that rainwater to then use it in the tanks where the fish are grown and maintained, and how that water is circulated in a closed loop system for both the fish and the plant. So I'll talk to you in more detail about that. In terms of natural resources and how we're utilizing those natural resources, I'll talk about how we use some of the land in the farm to grow some of the fish, some of the food that is used for the fish. Another important factor for industrialization has to do with labor supply. And some of the other speakers have already addressed the important need of having the bodies, the physical labor who are going to be able to conduct the work. So creation of jobs. And that is another one of the focus of our current work, developing internships. And we do so by investing and, in a way, growing our own talent. The average age of the farmer in Puerto Rico is 60 years old, and we're providing a new possibility, a new way of growing food, and giving these young folks an opportunity to become the farmers of the future. In terms of technology, I'll touch briefly in describing what it is that we're using, how we have built this indoor farm. What are some of the resources that we're using, the growing methods that are being used at Fusion Farms. Transportation is another important factor, and to that end, we are focused on the hyper-local production, and we'll talk about that in more depth in a few minutes. Consumers, that is another key important factor to take into consideration when successfully setting a vertical farming operation, and that is understanding the needs of the consumers. What are the needs of the market in a specific geographical area, and ensuring that the production is really geared and focused to producing and meeting that specific need. Forming strategic partnerships, and this is another point that some of the other speakers have touched on, and how incredibly important that is in terms of successfully setting up a vertical farm. So having the right connections and partnerships with industry, with academia and government, and what those partnerships look like. And finally, capital. For us to be able to build these farms, we need to be able to have the capital to invest and to build all these different systems. So we have an advantage of being an opportunity zone business. I'm going to briefly define what that is, and I'm going to close the presentation with specific information on what some of those tax incentives are and why Fusion Farms is a great investment opportunity. So with that, that has given you sort of lots of the points that I'm going to be touching on and how they tie back into this industrialization of vertical farming theme of today. So I'm going to start by describing in more detail what Fusion Farms does and what our vision and mission is. We're completely focused on providing a solution and providing help to securing food security and food sovereignty for Puerto Rico, where our pilot plant is currently located, and growing Puerto Rico and beyond. Puerto Rico is a tropical island in the middle of the Caribbean, and it is located in a hurricane zone, and it goes through lots of tropical storms, and it has inclement weather, whether it's floods, whether it's tropical storms or hurricanes, as I mentioned. So the way in which we have addressed this issue is by growing food indoors in a vertical farm. This is a hurricane protected building. It's about 11,500 square feet facility. One of the key challenges in Puerto Rico is that over 95% of the food, especially produce, is imported. So we're providing a solution by enabling the people of Puerto Rico to grow their own food, and especially fresh leafy greens, which are foods that have easily damageable surfaces. The other thing I wanted to highlight in terms of the importance of this work and why we're doing it and why Puerto Rico is because of the food miles. The way in which most food gets to Puerto Rico is, let's take, for example, the fresh leafy greens grown in California, travel all the way from California to Florida, from Florida transported into Puerto Rico, sits there for a few days before it's distributed to supermarkets throughout the island. So the number of food miles is quite significant. The amount of time that it takes for it to go from farm to the consumer is quite significant. So the actual shelf life is reduced greatly. So by the time it gets to consumers, it's the nutrient content is quite depleted. The freshness is pretty much gone, and the taste is just not quite the same. So what we have built is a internal indoor facility in which we're growing food, and the method that we're using is a controlled environment aquaponics. We have currently in our research and development space a one vertical rack unit, which you can see here in this picture. It occupies about 80 square foot. It is a two-center tower, and you can see in the photo is a double cantilever rack. It has two growth straps on each side, 5 levels as you can count from the top to the bottom. The total height is 12 feet, and we have a growing capacity of 1,120 plants. At the same time, we also have ongoing construction in our building. The construction that we have set for the next phase is about 5,640 square feet. It has 2 racks. Rack 1 is already built and in place. Rack 2 is been delivered as we speak, and will be up and running in the next few weeks and months. So our total growing capacity for the new commercial space will be 14,112 plants. That is an increase of almost 13 times of what we're growing at the moment. So that's just to give you a sense of how we're doing it and the technology that we're using. So controlled environment aquaponics, the inputs that go into our system include the fish food, the energy, and using renewable sources of energy, fresh water, which, as I mentioned, we are collecting the rainwater, filtering that rainwater, going through a UV light system, and then entering the system into the fish tanks. The way we're producing food, we have tilapia, our main fish, which act as the nutrient engine. We have the beneficial bacteria, which do the nitrification conversion. The plants absorb the nitrogen as food, and water is returned to the fish tanks. So it is a closed loop system, which greatly conserves the amount of water that we use to run the whole system. The outputs that we have 2 main outputs, which are the whole fish as food, and we also have a variety of leafy greens and vegetables and herbs that we produce. So minimal inputs and maximum outputs in our system. So in essence, what we do is we grow food, we sell food, and we build farms. So I have briefly described in the past few slides, it is a high-tech control environment aquaponic facility. It is designed to be constructed either adjacent or very close to the stores that the food will be sold at. So again, minimizing the number of miles that the food travels from production to the plate. So the focus again is on hyper-local leafy greens. We're starting out with non-GMO seeds, growing healthier, safer, higher quality, locally grown leafy greens. So it is the term that we have coined as more organic. We also want to design and have a design that moves towards zero waste. And that means that almost every element and product and byproduct of the whole process is repurposed and as much as we possibly can. So nothing is wasted type of mindset. The design can also be designed in a way which is completely off-grid. So we using clean renewable energy, various different types. The design is repeatable, is scalable, is transferable to just about any other place, which it leads to the focus of our building farms, starting in Puerto Rico, growing in Puerto Rico, as there are a number of empty vacant buildings that can be used to transform and grow exactly what we have by building this vertical indoor aquaponic farms. And beyond Puerto Rico, you have the same situation in the Caribbean with the largely imported foods. And also you have that same situation anywhere in the world, any of the other food deserts, whether it's in Nevada, whether it's in New York City or Singapore, India, or many other parts of the world. So what we have is, in essence, is a production of an ecosystem of a controlled environment, aquaponics, growing non-GMO leafy greens using no chemicals or hormones with the fish. To highlight some of the fish and how we use them as not only our nutrient engine, but also as a clean protein source, we're using the Nile pearl tilapia. Mild in texture and taste. It has great versatility in terms of how you can fix it and cook it. It is harvest unprocessed, so we deliver whole fresh fish. As I mentioned, one of the key things is the rain collection, which is an excellent and consistent water source for our system, and is sustainably grown ingredients that we use for production of the fish. In our farm, we grow moringa trees as one of our primary sources of protein for the fish food, as well as a variety of other ingredients that go into that food. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, having a clear understanding of what it is that consumers want and what the market needs is incredibly important. So what we know in terms of what our consumers are looking for is locally grown, fresh foods, better tasting, consistent quality, which is something that is very hard to get in Puerto Rico, stable pricing, having access to a variety of leafy greens, greater nutritional value, again, by growing hyper-local food, easy access, having the ability to grow these crops year-round and not be limited to seasonality, and just proudly locally grown in Puerto Rico and beyond. So choosing the right crops is incredibly important, and understanding the market and how we go about doing the feasibility studies to understand what crops are needed and what crops we grow in different geographical locations, not only in Puerto Rico, but in the United States and beyond. To give you an idea of what we're currently growing, we're growing mint and basil as two of our major crops, a variety of lettuces, cilantro, and microgreens. So food miles really, really, really matter. And as we go further away from where the production of food is, the farther the food miles, the lower the nutrient content. And when we look at what is the biggest carbon footprint cost in traditional farm agriculture, field agriculture, the carbon cost is actually not just related to transportation. Transportation costs in terms of carbon are only slight and only a minimal portion compared to the carbon costs associated with the production of these foods in terms of running the tractors, producing chemical fertilizer, pumping irrigation, and so on. So one of the ways in which consumers can reduce their carbon footprint is not only by shopping locally, but is also by adopting and encouraging this new and innovative agricultural technology ways of growing foods, which is exactly what Fusion Farms is doing. So to summarize what makes us, unique and first of a kind, certainly in Puerto Rico and in the world, is what we have created. We have created a aquaponic farm inside a building, in a hurricane protected building. We're growing alternative non-GMO variety of vegetables, leafy greens mostly. We're producing whole fish for food. We are using repurposed, unused real estate, give it a new life. The model that we're using is a design that is viable and is repeatable anywhere in any other food desert in the world. By designing the aquaponic indoor system, we're creating a lower carbon footprint using renewable energy solutions. We're maximizing the outputs and using very minimal inputs. And we're reconnecting people to growing food. Not only people know where their food is grown, but how it's grown, and giving the people of Puerto Rico and in other places an opportunity to grow food in a completely different and new way. Our research and development space is set up in such a way that it provides a learning and research opportunity as we build and scale up to commercial scale. I'd like to complete the presentation by sharing with you an amazing opportunity. Fusion Farms is a qualified opportunity zone business, and the opportunity zone tax deferral opportunity is the single biggest tax incentive of our lifetimes. But in order for investors to do so and to qualify, they need to invest in a qualified opportunity zone fund. And just this year, Fusion Farms established and formed its own qualified opportunity zone fund, and that is called Fusion Ag Tech OZ Fund LLC. For more information and for details in terms of our Fusion Farms Ag Tech OZ Fund and how to invest, I'm going to leave you with the contact information of our Director of Finance, who is Elliot Pratt. You can contact him via email or his phone. You have access to the slides, so please feel free to contact him for additional details and to learn more about how you could invest in this opportunity zone business. And to connect with us, there's lots of ways you can do that. I would encourage you to visit our website. You can find links to where to find Fusion Farms in all kinds of other different platforms, including LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, videos on YouTube and Vimeo. And the one portal that I wanted to draw your attention to is listed at the very end. Our InvestPR online investment portal can be found at InvestPR portal, and there you're going to be able to find our executive documents and due diligence and lots of documents with additional information and also an opportunity on how to invest in our company. So thank you again for the opportunity to speak today, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. You have my contact information, so please feel free to reach with specific questions that I may be able to answer. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Annabelle, for such an informative presentation. Now I request the speakers to answer the questions in Q&A question and answer tab.
Okay.
Uh,
All right. So I think we have a few questions from the audience. Let's pick a few questions. If Mr. Bhaskar is with us.
Yep, I'm here.
Perfect. All right. So we have a question for you, Mr. Bhaskar. I would just read it out so you can answer. We have a question. How do you compare growing in greenhouse like Pure Harvest is doing or indoor farming initiatives? So your comments on this, please.
Yeah, in fact, I've actually typed the answer there. See, it's a question of the level of investment. Whatever it is, the technology is always available. But to be very frank, you are selling in the same market. Okay? Only advantage and window you have is an extended harvest period. That is, during the off season, when no other farms are producing, you will be producing. So only there your advantage lies when you're talking of any sort of projects which are investing in glass house technology and all sorts of technology that helps them in production. Both do have their pros and cons. And during the season, good season, everyone sells in the same market. So there is no much awareness to the clients that, I'm growing in a glass house, I'm growing in a greenhouse, so I need, the producer will be needing better price. So that awareness isn't there. So there lies the issue.
Perfect. Nice one. I think we have a few more questions for you as well, Mr. Bhaskar. So I would request you to answer them in the Q&A section because unfortunately we won't be able to cover all the questions at the moment. So one last question I think we have for Annabelle. Somebody has mentioned that you mentioned non-GMO seeds. So do they have to be fully organic to avoid chemicals affecting the fish?
Yeah, so as much as we can, yes, in terms of any chemicals that are introduced into the system could certainly affect the fish. And because it is a closed loop system, certainly anything that affects the fish affects the growth of the plants and vice versa. So that's why we intentionally do not use any pesticides, any antibiotics, or any herbicides or anything that could potentially affect either the fish or the plants.
All right. Perfect. So with this, I think we have come to a great end of our day one of Global Vertical Farming Conference. And to all the audience who are watching this, I would tell you that the exhibition area, the booths are open for networking for another 40 minutes. So you all can go and network with the sponsors and the exhibitors of the event. In case you have more questions for any of the speakers throughout the day, you can just go to the VIP and message them and connect with them there. Rest, I think with this, tomorrow at 9 a.m. CET, we will begin with the second interesting day of our conference. Thank you so much, all the speakers. We love listening to you.
Thank you so much.
It was great.
Have a good day.
Thank you so much.